Welcome back, everyone. I've got a few things to talk about in this video, so I'll try to make this a good one. Let's talk about some projects past. The IBM PC that I bought from VCF back in the spring of 2023. If you recall, I was experiencing mental anguish over the video subsystem of the machine that I bought. So I went to VCF, New Jersey, and I said, if I find an IBM PC XT, or just the XT, an original one, I'd buy it and bring it home. Sure enough, the stars aligned, and I came home with an IBM PC XT with a monitor. Double bonus. And it was $200. Triple bonus. That's a pretty good price for one of those. Bring it home. Didn't really do my research. I've never owned an IBM PC XT with a TTL display. That's the green phosphor display. Text only. I had never owned one. All of the XTs I've had have had color displays and adapters. So whatever, no big deal. I figured, well, how hard could it be? I'll just find another monitor and a display adapter. I guess you know how well that went. It was unfruitful, unsuccessful. So I figured, all right, what's the next best thing? I know what I'll do. I'll find a VGA card that'll run in it, and I'll do that. Put a VGA monitor on it. But the thing is, the IBM XT has a very unique case design that doesn't really look good with a VGA monitor. See, VGA monitors, like, for example, this one right here, these came about much later than the design, or than when the IBM PC, even the AT, were designed. They're from a different era. They don't match aesthetically. It would look stupid atop an IBM XT. So we're back to square one. I want that original, authentic, early 80s look, but I want it on a beer budget, and I can't have that. Finding an original IBM PC monitor, color, CGA, with an adapter is going to be freaking hell because nobody's shipping them. Or if they do, they're charging an exorbitant amount. And when you get it, it's smashed beyond belief. So my only hope was to find one locally. And it's been almost, well, let's see. That was back in June. So yeah, it's been a minute. All right. Facebook Marketplace. There's a guy who regularly buys and sells equipment. He's not a collector. Not a collector. He's in it for the money. And we'll talk about that in a minute. I have my thoughts on that for a second. I'll share them. And you may not like my thoughts, but guess what? That's okay. So I went on Facebook Marketplace, and there's this guy. He's based out of Rhode Island, and I'm not going to say who he is. Some of you might know who he is. I've dealt with him in the past. I've sold him equipment, and I told him, I said, if you ever find an IBM PC color monitor, just let me know. Well, he didn't, but actually, he was going to try to sell me a Princeton, which is a clone of the original. That was in my back pocket as an alternative if I couldn't find an original. Lo and behold, he posts a picture of CGA monitors because he's smart. He knows they're hard to find. He knows that they're impossible to get. He knows that people want them. Very specific types of collectors, people like me, who want originality and they're willing to pay for it. That's where I come in. So he has in this picture of all these displays. And some of you might have actually seen this post. If you're in the New England Retro Computers Facebook group, you've seen this post. And there it was. This guy. Obviously, I bought it. I mean, you guys are pretty smart. You can do some basic deductions here. Here it is. This is the IBM, what the hell is it? 5314? 5153. I was close. This is the IBM 5153. These are getting hard to find. In work, not just in working condition, they're getting hard to find, period. And the ones that you do find are stupid expensive, or they're part of a system and the collector is not breaking them up to make a few bucks. They're not, no, you can't get these. These are almost as hard to find as Model F keyboards at a reasonable price. The price I paid for this monitor was $140. Now that may seem like a lot, but understand, when you need something to complete a system and you're only a little over $100 away, it's a small price to pay. And it was in working condition, actually really good working condition. He actually let me test it out at his house. So because the stars aligned for this transaction, I just happened to be at Foxwoods for a business conference for work, or a tech conference for work. And it's like a 40-minute drive from Foxwoods where the guy lives. So I'm like, ooh, I'll be down there such and such a date. And it was like a day after he posted it. Just so happens I'm going to be in your area, so I have cash. Let's do a deal. So we did. But it gets better. Oh, much better. He threw in a video card, a CGA card, an original IBM CGA. No, let me show you what that looks like. The original IBM CGA cards don't actually say IBM on them. At least as far as I know, they don't. Hey, buddy. So this is what we got. This is the original. This is the actual card, by the way, that he was demonstrating all those monitors on in that post. This is the one he used. And I got this for just a few bucks more. This is the IBM Color Graphics option card. Doesn't have an IBM part number or the name. Actually has a part number, and that's the thing is, so you got to understand, IBM is pretty smart too. When they built these systems, when they started combobulating parts to create the IBM XT or the IBM PC, they used mostly off-the-shelf parts. They were pretty smart. They kept their costs down, but foolishly, because they used fairly universal parts, they also opened the door for the clone wars. But, whatever. Business is business. They're still around. IBM didn't go out of business because of all this, so you know what? Just quit your bitching. Got this, working great, handed him cash. Now, this gentleman let me into his home where I saw what I would pretty much call the motherlode of vintage technology. I hope he doesn't mind me making this video. I'm actually giving him some pretty good lip service for this because he saved my ass twice in this transaction. I'll tell you, the next one is a little more personal. I'll explain that in a minute. But he has, think of it as his house is the Noah's Ark of all things vintage computing. He has two of every kind. Of every, just picture it in your head, like Computer Reset. Remember Computer Reset? I don't, because I live in the Northeast. But in Texas, they had a place called Computer Reset, and it was the motherlode. Now, think of a more condensed version of this. I'm talking laptops, monitors, desktops, towers, just you name it. He's got it, and that's cute. Oh, that's just adorable. And I'm like, oh my, I'm talking piles upon piles upon piles. Now, I found something. I just happened to glance over. I'm like, no, it's like, how much? I looked at this, we're talking piles and piles and piles of equipment. Just on 2 floors at this guy's house. And I'm like, my eyes just landed in the right spot. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got And I played it cool. I'm like, okay. Don't show him my cards. That's wheeling and dealing is exactly that. He had the computer case. Now let's take a walk over here. Now my house is kind of a mess. Imagine if this entire basement was filled to the rafters with stuff. Just boxed software, computer towers, racks upon racks upon, oh my God. I just, my jaw hit the floor. All the stuff that you need, he's got it. Now, my eyes landed on this. I kept it covered because it's so special. I have been looking for one of these cases, this exact case, not one like it, not one similar to it, but this exact case. For 20-ish years, I've been looking for this. I had one. All right, let's talk a little bit about this. Now, the year is 1993, 94 maybe, and it's the holiday season. You want to buy your family their first computer, and you've got a little extra money because you got a bonus because it's 1993 and that kind of thing existed, and you know, you just wanted to do something nice for the family, so you go to your local computer shop. Let's call it PC Outlet, okay? Just random name, PC Outlet. Right? You go there, and you tell the gentleman behind the counter, or the woman behind the counter, I don't really know who worked there at the time, and you say, I'd like to get our first family computer. And they say, okay, sir or madam, what do you want? What will you use? What kind of usage? Are we talking gaming? You're talking, what do you want? The fuck do you want? That's what they might actually say. It is New England after all. They're going to say, well, I have 3 kids. One of them is in elementary school. Actually, 2 of them would have been in elementary school, and the oldest is in middle school. We're looking for something that can do word processing, maybe a couple of, educational games. Maybe we go online. I heard about this Prodigy thing. That's a new thing, and I want to go on Prodigy. And all right. So they'll whip out a spec sheet or something, a little notepad maybe, and they'll say, okay, I can get you a 386, bargain. Get you a 486. Get you, Pentiums weren't a thing yet. So 386 would have been your entry level, and 486 or compatible, like an AMD, would have been, more price conscious. Not a bad option. Hard drive size, let's see, 93, 300 megs. Yeah, that's all you need, right? 300 megabytes. And we'll do a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive, maybe a 3.5 inch. And you need a monitor. Okay, so here's all the monitors we have. Go pick one out, something that's color, that's, 14 inch would be decent, I guess. We sell printers too, whatever. We got laser printers, dot matrix, we got inkjets. So you put a package together, how much RAM do you want? What kind of graphics card? What kind of sound? Do you want a sound card? Do you want a CD-ROM drive? All of these options. The world is your oyster. And it all depends on what you can afford. And then the salesman says, well, sir or madam, we can, because our systems are custom built, that means they can be upgraded later on and expanded upon. And you can, you can get 10 years out of this thing if you really want to. So you think about that for a second. Like, okay, let's do it. Here's my credit card. And the guy says, okay, your computer will be ready in a week. And, what do you want for software? Here's a checklist of all. You can do Office, Windows, DOS, whatever. You can check off what you want. And you go back a week later, and they said, the salesman says, okay, I've got your system built. Let's test it out. Let's make sure you're happy with it. And this is what you bought. Of course, it would have stuff in it, but ultimately this is the case that you may actually end up walking home with, or driving home if you can afford a car. It was 1993, so you probably had a car that was affordable. But there you go. Now, that scenario is what my uncle did. I have 3 cousins raised by their father, and he worked at a nice, well-paid blue-collar job back in the early 90s, made really good money. They lived, mother was out of the picture, my aunt, and they bought their first family computer in about 1990. I want to say it was early 94, because I remember when they got it. I was there when they were setting it up, and it was like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. And this is the case that they got. This is the exact case that they got. Now, I had developed some kind of not a personal connection with their computer, because it wasn't my computer, but I was envious of this because they had a computer before. Well, I had a Tandy 1000 back then. And this computer was the one that, like, my mom used it more than they did, I swear to God. She was always at their house using their computer, playing Solitaire. If you know what Solitaire is, it's a cool game. But this, not Solitaire, Solitaire. It's like Mahjong, but cooler. Now, whenever we went to their house, I would just sit on their computer and just play games on it. It was the first time I had ever seen the internet, period, was on that computer. Now, let's be frank, this is not from that same builder. But builders like that were all over the world, all over the country. Everywhere you turned, there was like corner stores, corner variety stores. Well, they had corner computer stores back then. Every town had one. It's kind of a market that doesn't exist anymore. If you didn't grow up in the 90s, early 2000s, you completely missed out on this entire thing. If you needed a part for your computer, you didn't go on Amazon and wait a couple days or a couple hours. You didn't go to Newegg. There was no Newegg. There was no Pricewatch.com. There was no, you went to a computer shop. You need a floppy drive, need a motherboard, CD-ROM drive, a new case, want to build a whole new machine, customize it, local computer shop. You could go to Best Buy, or you could go to Radio Shack's equivalent of Best Buy, which was Computer City. You go to Circuit City, you go to Radio Shack itself, or you could go to your local shop. Now, your local computer shop sold you beige box clones. That's basically what they were. They were nothing special, and that's why there's so few of these left. Because they were nothing special, most of them got crushed, destroyed, melted down, buried in the backyard along with the family dog. I mean, that's really gruesome. I'm sorry. That was the first thing that... What do you bury in your yard, right? Pets. Cats, dogs, they got to go sometime. But these computers are what most of my generation, okay, I was born in the mid-'80s, this is what we grew up on. Let's talk about what's inside, or what isn't. So, based on the original badge, now that's the other thing. Your local computer shop had their own badge, a 1-inch by 1-inch badge. It had their logo, maybe a little slogan, maybe just an icon or something like that. But every local computer shop had their own badge, and they were bubble domed. Most of the more expensive shops, or the nicer ones, it was a bubble domed, so it was like a translucent plastic covering. If you don't know what a bubble dome case badge is, well, you're missing out. They look cool. They often, back in the early 90s, they had a turbo button. Now, these were universal cases. They could take any AT, I think this is a baby AT, but they could take any AT logic board and, generally fully equipped and everything else, but they could take any AT style logic board, and most of those, well, the AT motherboards did extend as far back as the early PC. So it could be an 8088. But by the time this case was designed, these were generally fitted with a 286, a 386, or a 486. Possibly later upfitted with a Pentium board, like a socket, not a socket, maybe a socket 7, but socket 5 maybe. This particular machine was built with one of the last 386 boards. I know it's one of the last ones because it's very small and very integrated. It's got a soldered on processor. There's a socket for a coprocessor. This is a very cheap motherboard. It has no built-in anything. And it's battery bombed, like all 386 motherboards were. This one's pretty bad, actually. This is really bad. The battery is gone. Looks like it fell off. But this board is garbage. It's not really worth saving, but I am going to save these 30-pin SIMs out of it. Now, my cousin's PC, I actually remember the specs. When they bought it, when it was new, it had an AMD 40 megahertz chip. Look at this. It even has the Microsoft Windows. AMD 386 SX40. So this is actually, yeah, this is like the tail end of the 386. This is probably one of the fastest 386 boards known to man. AMD did, they did some clock manipulation to get higher speeds out of them, but this was probably almost as fast as a low-end 486, maybe a 486-25 maybe. Probably just as capable. Whoever bought this machine, they were on a budget because that should have been a 486, but whatever, we won't go there. My cousin's PC had a 486 compatible, 40 megahertz AMD. It had a 300-something megabyte Maxtor. Now, the Maxtor drives from that time were super noisy. You walk into my cousin's house or my uncle's house, and all you could hear was the drone of that hard drive. They were so loud, even brand new. So if you power up an old Maxtor and it sounds like a bench grinder, that's just how they sound. They were that loud. And it always had the flying Windows screensaver on it. Had Windows 3.1, naturally. But it was a damn fine machine for what it was. No CD-ROM. It had a 5¼ inch floppy and a 3.5 inch as well. Now, again, a lot of memories running that machine over their house because I'm pretty sure my mom actually made it a point to visit them just so she could play Solitile, because all we had at home at the time was just well, back then it was a stupid Tandy 1000 that could do nothing because, you know, it was obsolete the day we bought it, which, funnily enough, is still in my collection to this day and is no longer capable of this. Okay, so these, oh wow, that corrosion went deep. I can't get this board out. Here, let's unplug all these. So these cases were pretty ubiquitous. They came in different styles. Even tower cases were starting to become a thing back in those days for space-saving reasons. They were fantastic cases. They were well built, very sturdy steel. I think Kingspow actually made the case. I think that's the brand. But that power supply probably won't be staying with this. One of these, I haven't taken one of these apart in a long time, but one of these, there we go, standoffs. I'm going to have to save all of these standoffs. But yeah, that battery did some damage. Look at this board. Can we fix it? Well, I think so. Are we going to? Hell no. No, this thing is really roached. But yes, anything can be fixed, given time and money. What are we going to do with this case? Now, I had a few ideas. I wasn't planning on bringing this home. I wasn't planning on finding one of these. This exact case. This is the case. There are a few variants of this case, but this one is the one. Can I emphasize that enough? There were a lot of variants, though, but you know the one when you see it, and this is it. What I'm thinking, I have a few options. I could build it out as a nice 486. I'm talking VL bus. I'm talking you know, a 1 gigabyte hard drive, you know, really hot rodded out. You know, maybe a full 16 megabytes of RAM. Maybe we bump it to 48. I don't know. Or, or I take my Windows 98 PC and we rebuild it into this case. That's what I'm thinking of doing. I'm going to take my, it's in a mini tower. Actually, it's in its original case, which is a fine case in and of itself, but it has, you know, it doesn't give me the feels, you know. But this is the Windows 98 PC that has been featured in many videos. I'm thinking about transplanting its componentry into that case. What do you all think? You think I'm nuts? Yeah, I think so. But, you know, it's a thought. Actually, I really don't want to tear that apart. I'd like to preserve it the way it is and just build another machine. I even have a monitor for it. I got the perfect one. The CTX right here. There's nothing wrong with it. I can pair that monitor with that system. So I have to start looking for a VL bus 486 socket 4, maybe a DX2, DX4. I'm not going to put something from 1993 in here because those were the early, I don't like the early 486s, the socket ones and the, I don't like those. I'd like to make it somewhat capable as a 486. I'd like to have it running Windows 95 maybe, or Windows 3.1. I haven't really decided. But wish I knew how old this board was. It's just a Taiwanese. That's the thing with these boards, is they're always just some kind of Taiwanese CD-COM International. Okay. Yeah, that company lasted. Yeah. Usually they just built the new CD-COM International building. Yeah, it's a 40 million square foot donut, just like Apple's, only better. But this is, and look at this. I like this. They actually labeled all of the case harness plugs. Reset speaker, turbo LED, turbo switch. Oh, this is a turbo. Let me talk about that for a minute. So any case made in the 486 or prior error, no call, we'll roll with that. They often had a turbo switch. And that was because some of these machines, I mean, they were still thinking about backwards compatibility with older software meant to run on an XT. So what they would do is there was a lot of these boards, these earlier boards and cases supported the feature, or the turbo feature. When depressed, what it would do is it would downclock the system. So a 286 12 megahertz, for example, I think they would go down as far as 4.77 megahertz so that they could run XT software or PC software at its native speed. I'm not really sure how far down they could go, and I believe it was a configurable option depending on the board. But it would ultimately slow down the system. So the turbo function, when it was off, it would do exactly. It's a latching switch. Okay, so it does stay on. What the hell is that noise? Is that my cat? Anyway. So I gave him, I offered him a little money for, I think it was $30. I offered him $30 for it. And it had a 5 1/4 inch floppy drive in it, which I wanted. He wanted $80 for the floppy drive. I was like, you know what? No, I'll pass. You keep the floppy. But he did take my $30. So thank God for that, because I wasn't going to give him any more. I wasn't going to give him a dime more than that. Like, either you take it or I go home without it, you know. And he took it. He took the bait. So